Welcome everybody. I'm Jeroen from Climate at Max Brutz Labs. We're a grassroots organization at the Vienna Biocenter campus, and we're life scientists and trying to make biological research more sustainable. And I'm very excited to have Katharina Egghart and Marlies Wirth from the MAK, or the Museum of Applied Arts, today for a seminar. I think 6 months ago, one of our group members visited the museum and had a tour from Katharina on what the museum is doing to become more sustainable and how they're measuring their CO2 footprint. So that's how the exchange started. And we asked them if they wanted to present in our seminar series. Katharina Egghart is the sustainable manager of the museum. And Marlies Wirth, who will present some of the exhibitions they have in-house, is the curator of digital culture and the design collection. And she will then speak more about the actual exhibitions that are happening or happened and are happening at the museum. As usual, we'll have the talk first, and then there will be opportunities for questions afterwards. People can drop their questions in the chat during the talk, and then I will read them out, or they can also raise their hands. And just as an information, we will have one more talk in this seminar series next month by an IPCC author, Inge Jonker. She works at the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations in Rome, and she will tell about her project on monitoring trees by using satellites, so something completely different from today. But please feel free to join us also next month. And with that, I'll hand over to Katharina, and I'll stop sharing my slides so we can go for Katharina's slides.
So, hello, everyone. Trying to share my slides here. So does it work?
Yes, it's working. Just just present
now.
Yes, super, good.
Fine. So hello everyone again. For me to give a lecture in front of a group of scientists seems kind of redundant, as we would assume that you know everything already anyhow. But I'll try and maybe share some practical information about our activities concerning sustainability in the museum sector in our house, the Museum of Applied Arts here in Vienna, that some of you or many of you might know. So in fact, I think the museum has a twofold role concerning climate change and sustainability, once as an organization, and on the other hand, in its social role as an educational institution. My colleague Marlies Wirth, as curator of our design collection, will talk about the collection and the duty or role of the museum in this respect, and whereas and especially about what kind of role design has in this respect, which I think is an important and major duty of product design, also designing for the future. And I'll talk more about the organization and about the design of our processes and procedures in a sustainable way, about how we cooperate with our employees and also visitors, and how we try to steer and manage these processes. In principle, we base our sustainability activities on two pillars. First of all, and this is also how we started the process, was the certification to the Austrian Eco label, the Österreichische Umweltzeichen. So we're certified as Green Museum. And it's not so much about carrying this, how would you say, this label, but it's much more about that it forces us really to look at all our processes, to analyze what we do along 45 mandatory criteria and 35 target criteria, and it forces us into an action plan and then recurring audit every 2 years. Today, I experience it also helps me in arguing. I say, I'm sorry, we have to do this. The eco-label is one of the mandatory criteria of the eco-label. So in many respects, this is a very helpful tool to implement a sustainability in organizations. So concerning organizational measures, what did we do? We really have a written sustainability concept where the aim is to achieve climate neutrality within a certain time frame. We kind of discussed how long this is, but at least, I mean, we have the aim to reach it within a certain time. So I was appointed to be an environmental officer, which is important, just that there is somebody who takes care that things are really led out, that there is somebody who's responsible for questions and suggestions, and to track the process of improvement. We are monitoring our consumption. We are preparing annual climate balances. I'm composing a sustainability report, and I'm taking care of a constant information and training of the employees, which is really something that has to take place on a regular basis. And I'm trying to keep in touch with everybody, and I really feel that this changes a lot. Then, of course, there's this big topic of the building, where we quite forced within the restrictions of the building itself, which is, as you know, an old building, and we cannot do everything that we want. But we have started about changing all our lights. We use, where we can, motion detectors to steer lighting. We took off the system our old air conditioning and connected to the district cooling network of Vienna Energy. We're now about to replace all our thermostats of the old radiators, and we expect that also will bring a lot. We're about to buy this certain highest class of green electricity. You might know the expression UZ46, which is a certain classification of green energy only produced in Austria, and really with 2 strict rules. But also, as I already mentioned, it's very important to get the team in the boat and help me through this process. And what I like to do is, for example, I asked in a recent training to estimate people how much waste we produce. And of course, everybody was shocked by these numbers. Like before we start, this is a number that is before we started the process. So I hope we did improve a lot by now. But at this point in time, we produced 171 kilograms residual waste per employee. And so now this gets really practical. What did we do? I have to see, I can't see my slides. If I can move this away a little bit. No, now it's better. So we took away a lot of our residual dust bins or waste bins. And we force people now to go some way to deposit it, which already helps a lot, forcing people. Everyone has only paper bin next to the desk. And so this is kind of a measure that I feel really is paying off. And also something that helped already a lot when calculations are correct. This is 1 ton of CO emissions that we just changed in our coffee machine in the automat to instead of distributing these automatic cups, people have to take their own mugs and then wash them. So we saved 10,000 plastic cups a year just by this measure. Then we took away all these capsular machines and replaced them by automatic coffee machines. and we canceled, or we quit to send paper mailings and now send every mailings electronically. These are quite simple measures, but in fact, they do have quite some impact. What else did we do? Well, this is most of that I've already mentioned. Of course, also this mindset of reuse and recycle. We have the privilege to have a very an excellent restoration department, which of course helps when we need expert advice in how to repair or reuse things. Concerning office and print, our paper usage makes up for around 30 tons of CO2, how do you say, carbon dioxide emissions. And so this is also quite a lot. So we are about to change to floor printers that printing is made a little bit more difficult. You have to pick up your stuff and don't have it next to your desk. And we're switching to a digital document management system to get rid of printing every contract that we have and every invoice that we have. Concerning transport and mobility, I released, or together with the management of the house, we released a new business trip guideline that really tries to reduce traveling. But of course, traveling is also important for us and for our objects. So to the extent that this is possible, but most importantly, it is now mandatory to take the train instead of short haul flights within Europe with certain restrictions. But this really should have a large impact on our footprint. We support biking. We offer a free bicycle service in spring. We have a bicycle service toolkit available for employees and visitors. And we try to motivate to hike and bike to the MAK. We did also a survey how employees come to the MAK, and the findings are quite interesting. I mean, we are in a place, of course, that is reachable very easily by public transport. So 88% of the kilometers per year are by public transport, on foot or by bicycle. But the more stunning fact is that the very small amount of people who use motorbikes or cars make up for more than 75% of the emissions out of that, of this mobility. So, and then there's also a big chapter, of course, that concerns our work in the museum, where we try to reduce material, where we use, you can see our vitrines here, and if I'm well informed, they're more than 20 years old. But the way they're designed, they're very universal to be used. So we try and use them as much as we can and avoid building new exhibition architecture or design as much as possible, and also reduce transport by this. Big topic in the museum, of course, is the air conditioning or the climate control of the rooms. And there we started a work group together with other museums on getting out a common sense, a common paper where restrictions of climate conditions in exhibitions could be broadened a little bit. Now they're very rigid. They say 50% humidity plus minus 5% and 19 degrees plus minus 1. And it's very difficult, first of all, to keep these conditions, and it's very energy intensive. So by changing just a few degrees and broadening this corridor, we could already save a lot of energy. And as you know, the biggest part of our emissions are energy emissions. And now I come to the second chapter. I hope I'm not too long. Please, Jaren, stop me or help me in keeping the time. Is how our climate neutrality strategy and what we do. We have done a first pilot in calculating our emissions, and the result was that the MAK generates 1,400 CO2 emissions per year. And there's only 3 factors that account for 93% of the emissions. And this is electricity, this is heating, and that's the mobility, more or less. So traveling of employees and also visitors and working the way to the work. So what can we achieve if we want to reduce realistically? I mean, that's really a positive message. It is possible just by change of habits to reduce almost 60% of our emissions, which is buying green. I mean, we are buying at the moment already green electricity, but not this very high class. That's why this would be a big change. But also in heating, this new traveling guideline is also supposed to save us about half of the emissions from there. And then, of course, there is infrastructural changes, the greening of the public transport and greening of the public heating and stuff like that, which will also contribute. So assuming that still there are structures, essential changes in structures ahead, our aim to become climate neutral within the next 10 to 15 years seems feasible. So thank you for your attention so far. And I would like to hand over now to my colleague Marlies Wirth, who will talk about this important role of ours concerning visitors and the thematization of this issue in society.
Hello. Hi, welcome everyone also from my part. So thank you so much for having us today to this very important topic. My name is Marlies Wirth. I'm the curator for digital culture and head of the design collection here at the MAK. And I've been curating and conceptualizing exhibitions and our collection display of the MAK Design Lab, also in regards to climate issues and sustainability since a few years. As was mentioned, I'm going to speak about quite shortly about the MAK Design Lab, a collection of design strategies, and then go into detail on 2 special exhibitions on the topic of climate care that we realized in the past few years, and also a little glimpse into an upcoming project. As Katharina already said, design has a very important role in tackling the climate crisis. Design is much more than just designing and producing things and ever more products. Design is an attitude, a transformative tool, and a way to instigate change. It contributes to the formation of our world, and it also helps to expand our human possibilities of agency and decision-making. Therefore, obviously, design plays a large role in tackling the challenges of our world, such as climate change and digitalization, or also other social issues and societal issues. In the Design Lab, we present a range of products, prototypes, and projects that are concerned with a sustainable idea of producing and consuming rather than mass production or luxury product design. It stretches on about 200 square meters. It's always accessible in the downstairs of the museum. And it demonstrates in many ways that design can contribute to positive change and offers solutions and alternatives, also contextualized with the historical approaches from our collection. As many of you know, the MAK has been founded in 1863 and is dedicated also to preserving the heritage of Vienna 1900 and of Josef Hoffmann and all the great designers of Wiener Werkstätte, which were in fact luxury products. So the Design Lab takes a different approach and showcases the future of where we're headed to. As I mentioned, we did a few projects that were absolutely committed to the topic of climate care. And that happened in 2022. We did start to work on this. I just was distracted by comment, but it wasn't meant to be answered now. So we started this project in 2020, actually, together with guest curators, and we're asking ourselves where we headed in the digital age. As everyone knows, many of the resources for our everyday products, including that device that we are clinging to day and night, are sourced and mined in precious parts of the world. So we really wanted to see how we can treat the planet more as an organism and rather than a resource that we can exploit. So we did a bunch of exhibitions and projects under the umbrella of the Vienna Biennale, which we initiated in 2015 at the MAK and did for 4 iterations. I'm very happy to tell you that even though we are sad that we don't do the Vienna Biennale anymore, it has now been transformed into the Vienna Climate Biennial and is a new and own entity that will continue this important message. So I can't move my, I'm sorry, I can't move my image, so I will have to restart that. No. Here we are. So the first project that I want to introduce to you was the underlying research under the title Climate Care, Reimagining Shared Planetary Futures. It was co-curated by Anab Jain, Professor for Design Investigations at the University of Applied Arts, and the architect and Professor Hubert Klumpner, who teaches at ETH Zurich and is also part of Urban Think Tank, an architecture practice that also works a lot in South America and is concerned with indigenous practices of building and conceptualizing architecture, alongside with myself and our former director, Christoph Thun-Hohenstein. We were looking at all the influences that there are on our planet, the cycles of sustainability. I don't have to tell you that. And we're seeing, that we can include projects from all of these fields in this very large-scale exhibition. I will only introduce the beginning of the exhibition to you, which was mainly the part that I was responsible for, and it was meant to raise awareness and create a sense of urgency for our visitors. Since we know that already Alexander von Humboldt had known that there were issues regarding our climate globally, but no one listened. And then again in the 1960s, there was a large movement, counterculture movement, also here represented by the Whole Earth Catalog by Stephen Brand, which we kind of chose as our mental image of putting together a catalog of resources, information, prototypes, and inspirations to give people the hope and the tools to think about how we can tackle these challenges together. We started it off with a portrait of Greta Thunberg, represented by red blood cells by the artist Thomas Bayerle, and obviously the climate clock here in the picture, which counts down our lifeline here on Earth if we don't change our carbon emissions soonish. As well as the first image shot from of Earth from outer space, which really gave this whole Earth impression that humankind had been lacking before that, to really look at this very limited habitat that we have here and to look at it as an organism and as a precious thing. Fun fact, we also took the image as it has been delivered by NASA originally, which is south on top, which is a little hint towards the obligation that the global north has in tackling climate change, much more than the global south, which is suffering. We also started off with showcasing consumerism here in the image of Alexander Gursky's fantastic photo of the interior of an Amazon hub in the United States, which is basically a roboticized consumerism temple. As we all know, everyone's guilty of sometimes ordering a package or two. So this should take a glimpse on our current status and then look ahead on the measures that we can take to take care of the climate. Here is a very touching piece, actually a photograph in the background by Thomas Rede, an actual photograph, not a rendering or simulation. It's of a glacier in Switzerland, the Rhone Glacier, which has been melting and has been a tourist attraction since the 1900s. And the scientific approach is to cover it with blankets to keep it from melting, which cannot be achieved. So it keeps melting, it's just slowed down. And the work in front of this image is 3D scans by glacial formations, which are now conserved in these sculptures, but which are already gone or have been gone a few months after the artists took these 3D scans, because the melting progresses that fast. We had some alternative views of how the planet could be organized, looking at it as a modern human habitat, a complex ecosystem where the human is not on top of the evolution, but just a part of kinship along with bugs and viruses and fish and all the other animals that we share this planet with, as well as plants. We call this the modern human perspective. Deliberately, it is based on a mission statement or a manifest by Superflux, a studio founded by Anab Jain and John Arden, based in London. Anab Jain has sources, heritage in India originally, and they tried to also come up with a new vocabulary, replacing the human fixing of problems with the caring for something, or innovation with resurgence, or growth with nurture, and also independence with interdependence, really bringing to expression that we are all interdependent beings. We cannot exist without the trees in the forest and vice versa, or maybe they can better even. And looking at the Anthropocene as something that can pass and become the dithering. So this leads me to probably what is my favorite project of the year 2021. It has also received several honorable mentions and a design prize in the aftermath. It's a commission that we did in the central MAK exhibition hall under the glass ceiling with Superflux, with a soundscape by Cosmo Sheldrake, the brother of the famous author Merlin Sheldrake, who wrote a fantastic book about the relevance of fungi for our existence, basically. And it all started with the idea of resurgence, basically. It was conceived at the time when in 2020 the first big fires happened in Australia first, but then also in California, wildfires in forests. And Superflux really wanted to look at the resurgence of nature, but also on the influence of humans on this habitat. So here we see a forest near Vienna in Neunkirchen, my original hometown where I was born in and grew up in. So it was a monocultural forest planted by Kaiser Franz Josef for the wood industry. And as we all know, monocultural forests tend to burn down much more easily than naturally grown and forests that have a multitude of inhabitants and biodiversity. So this forest of black pine burnt, and we sourced burnt trees from there for our exhibitions to have like, formerly living material. Here we see our team looking at the trees, first sketches. We also wanted to achieve an actual kind of forest floor for our visitors without bringing in all the little friends that live in there in concern of our conservation department. So we really tried to source all these materials. And it's then that it started to become clear that we will need to conceive this project as a zero or low waste project with a circular thought. This is another sketch. And from the rendering, from the digital culture to the reality, So we really thought about how to bring in materials that can be reused or used differently or returned after use. Here's some other views. So you also walk to a little pond in the middle. The plants that you see were sourced from the botanical, in cooperation with the gardener and the Botanical Institute. And some of them even bloomed during the exhibition duration. We got little red berries. The soundscape that you have to imagine now, I didn't source a video, is like bird chirping and all the sounds you can hear in the forest. Only to arrive at this pond and look into other species' faces, basically, that were recorded in the Innsbruck Zoo. Obviously, also wildfires were present, like the danger of the fire, and then the remnants and the burnt earth. So here, what you can see, the material that I mentioned is so-called cocoa char. It has then been given to the university and used by students for other projects. All the trees, the burnt trees, have been brought back to where they came from, to the forest, have been shredded and used as fertilizer for their still living tree friends. And very excitingly, the living plants that you can see spent the winter in Seestadt Aspern and will soon be used in a project there outdoors that Superflux will conceive. And the under construction, we will see that now in that video, already a glimpse of these yellow paints was sponsored and given by Doka, with the idea that we said, okay, no one will see that it's Doka plates. It will be hidden, but we can return to you the plates that we didn't use, that we didn't cut. And this proved to be a very sustainable strategy of using display. I will play that for you. It looks so easy from that angle, but believe me, it was weeks and weeks of labor of all the team and also physical labor. Obviously, we had to provide a very special light for the plants, very good humidity. We had to water the plants every 2 days and spray the little trees. So only one birch didn't make it, but all the others survived. And it was really a great experience of bringing nature into the museum. And for people who might ask, why would one do that? The thing is, the saying, you can't see the forest for the trees, is kind of true. So if you go outside into a forest, you might not look at the things in the same way than you do inside a museum in the context of a climate care exhibition, where it is explained to you what that might mean and entail, and what it really means to be part of a modern human world, and just consider the human not on top of evolution, but as a vital part, who also has the responsibility to use their intelligence and tools to counteract the pain that we've already achieved. Maybe as a little teaser and a cordial invitation to join us on our opening on 31st of January is the exhibition of Vienna-based artist Birke Gorm. She grew up in Denmark, and she used the title Dead Stock, referring to economically no longer valuable materials. Material that she collects, here we see a shot from the studio, like old rusty metal or jute bags or like textiles and screws, and that she then uses to produce these wonderful sculptures. And she will have first solo show at the museum opening end of January. And it's also a climate care topic, since the reuse and conscious use of materials is really a goal of ours. And we try to showcase that in our exhibitions. Also with exhibition displays, I wanted to mention that we have a large kind of depot of historical vitrines and also contemporary pedestals and vitrines that we, since many, many years, even before we had the Umweltzeichen, we did encourage all our architects and designers to reuse and make use of it. And many, many very creative and exciting display elements have come out of that strategy. Thank you very much, and yeah, keep caring for the climate.
Thank you, Marlies and Katharina, for this nice overview of what's happening at MAK. And I can just say I've been there. I really would encourage people to go there and have a look at the exhibitions themselves. So as always, people can drop questions in the chat for Marlies and Katharina. We have some time. So the first one was from Ali Schmidt, was thanks for the overview from the ecological footprint and the strategy. She was wondering if this has been done all in-house or if this was more collaboration with universities or with other companies or with other institutions. And then I guess actually, or the live reports from the street is how is the climate or the MAK dealing with climate activism, and are they also participating in that? Maybe Katharina, you can start with the footprint, and then maybe Marlies, you can take over on the activism. I don't know.
Right. Yes. So the project concerning the ecological footprint, we do that together with the University for Bodenkultur. BOKU Vienna is designing at the moment, or we are almost finished with a calculator who will be in use for all at least Bundesmuseen. We are hoping that we can roll it out also to other museum institutions. So we did have the very professional support from the team from BOKU. And we have already also founded teams together with other sustainability managers in the cultural sector. We're working together, sharing best practice there, but also in-house, we established a green team to always have new ideas, and so I have a good backing of people to implement measures. Concerning activism, yes, Marlies is for sure the right address, because my answer would be yes, we're activists in the sense of producing. First of all, we are a member of Museums for Future.
We're proud members of Museums for Future.
But I would also call our exhibitions this kind of activism, because making topics aware and visible, and this installation in your background really went underneath the skin. I would see our roles there.
Yeah, maybe I can add on that. So not only are we proud members of Museums for Future and have been active part of the climate marches since forever, working together with the Artists for Future also and other museums, which helped us in drawing like transparency to carry. As Nina said, of course, the exhibitions are also some kind of activism. I wouldn't call it activism, but awareness raisers. So that's important. And I have to mention that in the exhibition Climate Care, we have not only invited artists, designers, and architects to contribute work and voices to the show, but also activists from all parts of the world, which was really important to us, because climate activism in the global north and European cities may look different than climate activism in countries on islands that are actually sinking and where people might lose the land they live on. And it's really an unresolved issue, for example, how we will deal with climate refugees in the future. So this is really an important thing to talk about. If the question was aimed at climate activists gluing themselves to artworks or pouring soup over them, I do not appreciate that. But on the other hand, I have to say, these climate activists know what they're doing. So they choose works that are protected enough and will not destroy them. What the cultural sphere and institutions and curators are massively afraid of is people who imitate that behavior without thinking about where they do that and how they do that, with which materials they do that. So we have to keep a close eye on all those people, and every museum has more controls now. But still, we encourage people to demonstrate in front of our building on the ring and join the climate marches together with us. I think, Nina, you might know even when the next one is.
Not by heart, to be
okay,
be
but it's kind of soon, and we will be there.
Normally in spring, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, just to confirm, we are also working with the BOKU on climate footprinting. So they also made a tool for the universities. So they're really supportive. I just had a question. Is there any group of museums or any good examples worldwide of museums that really pushing this agenda next to what the MAK is doing, or is there?
I mean, the good thing is that many museums worldwide are now starting to take on the topic. And I've seen that. I don't want to say that we're the first ones, but among the first to do these large-scale exhibition projects on these topics, as we did also with artificial intelligence and digitalization. But I was very happy to see in the past year and also end of 2021, that there are many exhibitions popping up dealing with these topics. So also in smaller institutions. And I think most museums are becoming aware, not only budget-wise, but eco-consciously, that reusing materials inside like buildings and build-ins is so important and can make such a huge difference.
Yeah. There was one quick question from Sarah, and then I come to Lillian. Was on mobility. So I guess this is for Katharina. Is how do you deal with it? And I was actually not so surprised with the numbers, but because we as scientists, we're around 50% of our footprint is from flights. So from the so I guess, but how does the museum deal with this, Katharina? Of
the visitor travel.
Yeah, the visitor travel. Yeah, or no, the artist
travel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is of course is a critical question. We don't want to stop transporting artworks. We still want to share artworks within the museum world, and we want to see exhibitions. And it's also important to keep in exchange with other institutions worldwide. So the way through that is, I think, avoid what is possible to avoid, rethink. As I said, we reduced business traveling within Europe and switched to train there. That's really amazing.
I'm sorry, Katharina, I just see that it was really about visitor travel, not artist travel. It was now in the comments. Yeah.
Okay, let me just finish that sentence. So this makes a huge difference, taking the train instead of the plane within Europe. Concerning visitor traveling, you mean the hard calculation? Was this the specific question? How do we calculate that in our balance sheet?
I think it's just how people come to the museum and how you can change the behavior of how people come. I mean, I guess it's a person from Lisbon. So it's, I mean, the museum is really the MAK is really in the city center, and there's, I think it's, I don't know how much meters, but it's like 100 meters. There's
I think apart from the flights to get to Vienna, the moving to the museums, also other museums, not only the MAK, is very, very easy, if not easier by public transport than it would be by car. So we are very, very walking friendly city.
A lot of them come on its walking distance. And then the majority is then also public transport. But still, it is a question how you calculate the tourism. But our approach is that tourists that come to Vienna don't only visit the MAK. So there has to be a split at the end of the day on the tourist attractions in Vienna. To calculate it, to see on that. And of course, I mean, to change emissions out of tourist traveling, there has to be major infrastructural changes. There we need policy, there we need scientists, there we need regulations. This is certainly nothing that a single organization can influence.
Did the museum try some virtual exhibitions during COVID time, or is this, because I guess the interaction with the real objects, I mean, we see the trees behind Marlies, but is I think the most important part of the...
Yeah, I have to say we are currently working, we just announced our 2023 program, and one of my projects this year will be called /Imagine, a journey into virtual space, dealing with the design, architecture and urban planning of the virtual space. But still, it will be a physical exhibition. And we did a lot of programs like talking hybridly or talking over the internet to people or showing things. But like actual exhibitions, I still think, as you mentioned, the objects are important. And doing virtual shows, I can imagine we do that with virtual or born digital artwork. Then it makes sense. With projects such as behind me, it does not. You really have to use all our senses to achieve that.
Yeah, there's a question from Lillian. Do you want to unmute yourself, Lillian?
Yeah, hi. Thank you, both of you, for the nice presentation. Katharina, I wanted to ask you to deep a bit the information of the policy of the MAK concerning the mobility of the employees. I remember some limitation on the flights measured by kilometers. So if you would go to Berlin, it would be a must to go by train. On the other hand, where is the limit, the Grenze?
Okay, we didn't limit it to the kilometers, to the distance, but we limited to the let's say, put its comfort. Yeah, if a destination is reachable within a certain time on a direct train, or there is a night train available, then it's mandatory to use the train. And not so much because it can be close. And if you have to change 5 times, then I mean, so we try to keep it more with a little bit of pragmatism. And
okay,
that's what it says. And then of course we have to take decisions on the individual case. Sometimes it's not possible, and it's not about being 100% perfect. We will never be that way. But I think it's about getting the big part right. I mean, most of the things, then we're already very good, I think.
But when the expectancy for 2030, as you presented in your graph, that's a reduction of almost 50% for the mobility. How is this achieved?
May I answer that a little bit?
Yeah,
so
sure.
During COVID, we normally do courier travel with all our objects obligatory. If we loan our historic objects to other museums, no matter how much we trust them, and in former times we would always send someone to install it and to care for this object. And during COVID, that was not possible, and the collections re-evaluated the need for every single object. So if it's not that complicated, or if there's a trusted restorator, conservator, curator on site in the lending, in the borrowing institution, we waive that. So this actually reduces a lot. And also, I think overall, we may have or will be still reducing overall travel. I mean, during COVID, obviously, but also I think we as an institution never did that as much, but sometimes it was done by former directors, like to travel for 1 day to a city. So I would never do that, apart from climate. It's way too exhausting. But to really consider, can you attend in a virtual meeting, or do you really have to go there because you have to have a meeting or see an exhibition in person? So to really be more precise in distinguishing if it is necessary to be there physical for a longer time, or is it doable in a virtual meeting?
So it's a sum of both. It's the reduction on the one hand that Marlies just explained, and on the other hand, it's taking the train. And in the sum, in the calculations, a reduction of 50% can be achieved, or 100 tons a year.
Mm-hmm.
So we calculated every single business trip in the year that we did the balance.
Another question, maybe more for Marlies. Is there are many scientists which have an artistic spirit. How are all the presentations in the bottom floor of the MAK just for artists, or can scientists also contribute?
Absolutely. So it's also a mix of projects that have been done by designers, by artists, by architects, even by students of design, or by junior scientists. And some of the projects, if not a lot actually, for example, the one I briefly showed with the augmented forest has been done by designers in collaboration with scientists. So many projects are actually based on collab, and everyone's encouraged to contribute.
Yeah, maybe a follow-up question from Ali Schmidt was, how do you convince artists to work more with like reusing materials, or trying to use things that are maybe are in the collection? Is there any like program, or do you just do this on an individual basis? Or is this the future of that people will definitely in the applied arts, that people will like use more and more materials that are climate neutral or friendly? Yeah.
So there's many different answers to this question. It's very complex. So first of all, I would never tell an artist which materials to use. But what I do is I invite artists or designers to the museum that I feel are relevant voices to our programming, to our attitude. So I don't think we would invite someone who's working with toxic material that is contributing to waste. But still, I think it's also interesting to see that there is a lot of artists out there. And we have a wonderful example that was of someone who was also part of the climate care exhibition, who consider their own artistic footprint. For example, it is Andreas Greiner. He is based in Berlin. And during being part in our group show at the MAK, he also had a solo exhibition at Kahane Art Space in the 2nd District. And his concept was, for every solo exhibition, he has to plant a tree. He does that globally, and he also has a website with a map of all the trees he planted to make up for his CO2 emissions. He also only travels by train, consequently, only. And we planted the tree together in order to also contribute from sides of the MAK. And he also did a small calculation for his artwork, which was a AI-based kind of forest imagery. So he always provides this information of how much the technology he uses up on energy and resources as a conceptual move, basically. But he still does it because he also claims that it can be done, and it's also important to raise awareness about this fact.
Great, yeah. There was one previous question from Nicola, was, I guess, for Katharina, was, is there already a sustainability report? And if yes, or if it's planned, what criteria will be in there, and how does the audit work, or what kind of...
I think the question is regarding the Umweltzeichen, which criteria are there, and how does the audit of the Umweltzeichen work for the museum? Yeah. So we have to do a bunch of things to keep it?
Yes, at least we have to keep our promises. I mean, it's 45 mandatory criteria and 35 others, so that would be very I can't answer that in short, but it's the big chapters that I've been also presenting about management. It's about energy, it's about waste, it's about also health of employees and social factors, and then there is specific criteria to the museum. We could follow up on that on a personal level if you're interested deeper in that. And so the process is really to gather the data, to monitor our consumption, and then there is a re-audit by a state institution, more or less, that have a look if we keep our promises.
Yeah, so it's monitored too. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So if there's no more questions in the chat, I have one final one, more or less from my side. How do you see, like, I mean, we're scientists, very focused on our lab. Most people are doing life sciences. The museum is actually not so far away from our campus, but there seemed to be very little interaction, right? Or how do you see that these two sectors can support each other? Or I mean, you explained already some of the projects where scientists were involved, but I have the feeling like we're trying to raise awareness on the same of the same topics, and how could we support each other?
Yeah, maybe just from the content side, we just did a project in Milan, in the Triennale di Milano, with Sonja Bäumer. It's called Entangled Relations, Animated Bodies. It will also be available for a Viennese audience from 31st January at MAK. And for this project, we cooperated with the ISTA, Institute for Science and Research, and the specific research on human immune cells and the movement of these cells, which is similar to the one of amoebas and other microorganisms. So the artist has been collaborating with scientists since over 14 years. And that's how we also as an institution then come to collaborate on very specific projects. And I think regarding like all our CO2 emissions and everything, it's absolutely crucial to collab with BOKU and other experts, because we could have never achieved that by ourselves. It started with the idea of having the CO2 footprint of the climate care exhibition on hand for the visitors to see on the back of the exhibition, and then it became a full-blown project, which is very interesting and crucial for everything we do now.
Mm-hmm. And how easy are these collaborations? Because I mean, this is interesting that they just pop up. So it's really artist driven, and these collaborations. Yeah.
Well, I guess it's two worlds that come together, but most of the times the results are very fruitful and open insights for visitors, for us, for all of us. I think science very often is quite a closed field, and this art can have a role in that respect to make visible, to thematize, to raise discussions around.
Yeah, there's one. Yeah, there's one final question in the chat from Ali Schmidt. Was more or less, did you see a cultural change also from the artist in the recent years? Because he says that previous maybe it was not easy to convince artists to work on it because they want to maybe make a big sculpture or something. And did you see a change like with Fridays for Future or other initiatives, or is this always been or more personal that some artists were interested?
I think it's really personal, but there's also a cultural shift, obviously. So first of all, it's not the idea that the institution brings artists to focus on something, so they must do that for themselves. And luckily, I've seen indeed more artists and also designers and architects to focus on sustainability and climate change topics or climate care topics in the past few years than before, but there are still artists out there and designers doing relevant work that is not focusing on that topic, but still is not contributing to more waste or not being toxic, but still just dealing with completely different topics. And that's also absolutely valid and relevant. So I only have to stress that. So it can't be that everyone now has to work only on that topic in the field of art and design. It's to keep in mind that it's our own only world, and that one should not contribute to make it worse. But not everyone has to focus on the topic, in my opinion, to be relevant. But there is more people focusing on the topic. It comes quite naturally, I think, with something being more and more present and also, affecting each and every one of us nearly every day. So you maybe come also to focus on that content-wise.
Okay, so thanks a lot, Marlies and Katharina, for this insight from the museum, from the MAK.